Hello friends, welcome back. First of all, tell me where in the world you're watching my video from. Rain had a way of making Portland feel smaller, like the city was folding inward on itself. That afternoon, it wasn't pouring. It was worse than that. A thin, persistent drizzle that soaked through fabric and patience alike, the kind that made you forget when you'd last seen the sun. I had just finished grocery shopping, my list folded and refolded in my pocket out of habit, when my feet carried me down a street I didn't consciously choose. That was the thing about retirement. You stopped rushing, stopped fighting time. You let your body decide where to go, trusting that routine knew better than thought. I was thinking about Sunday dinner, about whether Emma would be strong enough to sit at the table for more than an hour, about whether I should push her again, about how tired she sounded on the phone, about how her voice, once quick and full of light, had begun to drift, as if she were speaking from underwater. I didn't notice the building at first. I'd passed it before. 6 weeks earlier, to be exact. Travis had mentioned it casually, like one might mention a new grocery store or dentist. Emma's seeing a psychiatrist now. Trauma from the accident. Anxiety. He'd said it gently, responsibly. Dr. Vanessa Wright. Specialized in recovery after severe physical injury. It made sense. Everything he said always did. But that afternoon, something pulled my eyes toward the glass front of the building. Maybe it was the way the rain smeared the reflections. Or maybe it was instinct, 30 years of reading faces, postures, lies that wore polite expressions. Whatever it was, my gaze locked onto the coat rack just inside the lobby, and my breath stopped. Hanging there, impossibly familiar against the sterile beige walls, was a navy blue quilted jacket with brass buttons. For a moment, I told myself it only looked like Emma's. But I knew better. Margaret had bought that jacket 2 months before she died. Emma had protested at the store, embarrassed by the price, insisting she didn't need something so nice. Margaret had smiled that small, stubborn smile of hers, and run her fingers over the brass buttons like they were talismans. "Let me do this," she'd said. "Think of it as me keeping you warm when I can't be there." Emma wore that jacket everywhere after that, even in mild weather. Said it made her feel safe. Said it smelled faintly like her mom. I stood there on the sidewalk as rain crept down the back of my collar, staring through the glass at a jacket that should not have been there. Today was Thursday. Emma's appointments were Tuesdays and Fridays. Travis had told me himself. He'd emphasize consistency, like a man who understood structure and discipline. That was one of the things people liked about him. So why was her jacket here on a Thursday afternoon? Cars passed behind me, tires hissing through wet pavement. Someone brushed past, muttering an apology. Life continued at its normal pace, indifferent to the quiet fracture forming in my chest. I should have walked away. I should have called Emma, asked her directly, laughed it off when she gave me some simple explanation. I should have trusted the version of reality that required the least resistance. But when your gut tightens the way mine did, when it doesn't whisper but screams, you don't ignore it. Not if you've spent decades watching what happens to people who do. The glass door yielded slightly when I pushed it. Unlocked. Inside, the reception area was empty. A desk sat unattended. A half-eaten sandwich wrapped in paper beside a handwritten note. Back at 1:30. The clock on the wall read 1:15. 15 minutes. The air smelled like lavender layered over something sharper and clinical, designed to soothe without revealing anything real. I stepped inside and let the door close softly behind me, my heartbeat suddenly loud in my ears. The hallway stretched ahead, narrow and quiet, doors lining both sides. Nameplates glinted under fluorescent light. Therapists, counselors, practitioners of healing. At the far end was Dr. Wright's office. The door was slightly ajar. Light spilled through the gap, warm and deceptive. And then I heard a voice. "I can't keep doing this." Travis. Not the voice he used with Emma. Not the one he used with me. This one was strained, brittle around the edges, stripped of patience. Every day I have to look at him and pretend. I stopped breathing. A woman answered, her tone calm, professional, disturbingly unbothered. "The settlement is being finalized. 2.7 million. It should clear within 2 weeks. 2.7 million. Emma's settlement." My fingers tightened around the handles of my shopping bags as understanding began to rise, slow and poisonous. And then, Travis asked. There was something in his voice then. Not fear, not concern, Hunger. Then we proceed exactly as discussed, the woman replied. Emma will need continued care. The medications keep her manageable. Once the money is secured, we'll transition her to a more permanent facility. My blood turned to ice. What about Philip? Travis said. My name sounded foreign in his mouth. He's calling more. Asking questions. I think he's suspicious. The woman laughed softly. Not cruelly. Worse than that, confidently. What can he prove, she said. You're her husband. You have power of attorney. Even if he suspects something, he has no legal standing. Power of attorney. The word struck like a physical blow. He could cause problems, Travis insisted. Then manage him, she replied. Be the concerned husband. Tell him Emma needs space. Focus. If he pushes, her voice trailed off, deliberate. There are ways to handle difficult family members. Something slipped from my hands. The canvas bag hit the floor with a dull thud. A jar inside rolled slightly, glass clicking against tile. Silence. My heart slammed, so hard it felt visible. Did you hear that? Travis asked sharply. I didn't wait to find out what they'd do next. I grabbed the bags and moved, quietly, desperately, back down the hallway, through the empty reception area, toward the door. Behind me, I heard movement. Footsteps. A door opening. Probably just the building, the woman said lightly. Outside, the rain had intensified, cold needles against my face. I forced myself to walk, not run, across the street to my car. My hand shook so badly, I dropped my keys twice before managing to unlock the door. I sat behind the wheel, breathing hard, rain drumming against the windshield until the world dissolved into gray streaks. Then I saw him. Travis stepped into the doorway of the office, phone pressed to his ear. His eyes scanned the street slowly, methodically, searching. When his gaze reached my car, it seemed to pause. I couldn't tell if he recognized it. I couldn't tell if I'd just become part of their plan. As he turned and disappeared back inside, one thought settled into my bones with terrible clarity. If I was right, then my daughter wasn't healing. She was being prepared, and I was the only one who knew. If the man you trusted with your child's life was quietly deciding when she would no longer be useful, how long would you have before it was too late? I didn't remember the drive home. Not the turns, not the traffic lights, not the familiar streets I'd traveled for years. My body handled the mechanics while my mind stayed trapped in that hallway, replaying voices that refused to fade. Travis's impatience, Dr. Wright's calm certainty, the way they spoke about Emma, as if she were already reduced to paperwork and timing. 2 weeks. That number pulsed behind my eyes like a warning light. By the time I pulled into my driveway, night had settled over Portland, thick and quiet. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the air heavy and reflective. I sat in the car longer than necessary, hands still on the steering wheel, trying to slow my breathing before I went inside. I didn't want the house to feel my fear. It already held too much grief. Inside, the silence was complete. Margaret's chair still faced the window. Her coffee mug sat where I'd left it that morning, untouched. On the wall above the mantel hung a photograph taken years ago. Emma at 10, gap-toothed and grinning, Margaret's arm around her shoulders, my hand resting on Emma's back, as if even then I knew the world might try to take her from us. I stood there for a long time, staring at that frozen happiness. What do I do? I whispered to the room. There was no answer. Sleep never came that night. I sat at the dining table with a single lamp on, the rest of the house swallowed in shadow. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. The medications keep her manageable. I imagined Emma sitting across from me, nodding politely, smiling faintly, while parts of her slipped quietly away. Sometime after midnight, I opened my laptop. I started with Dr. Vanessa Wright. Her website was immaculate. Soft colors, professional language, a headshot that conveyed competence and warmth in equal measure. Stanford education, board certification, testimonials praising her compassion, her patience, her ability to give people their lives back. I'd spent decades in human resources. I knew how easy it was to manufacture credibility. I dug deeper. Articles, business registrations, a brief mention of her divorce in the Portland Business Journal a year earlier. The timing nagged at me. 1 year ago, right around when Travis had suggested Emma see a psychiatrist. I kept searching. Images. That's when I found it. A photograph from a wellness conference in Seattle, 2 years old. The theme was holistic recovery, fitness and mental health working together. Speakers stood on stage, but my eyes went to the audience. Third row. There was no mistaking him. Travis. Younger, leaner, unmistakable even in a blurred background. And beside him, leaning in close, her head tilted toward his shoulder as they shared something private. Vanessa Wright. Not colleagues exchanging pleasantries. Not strangers seated randomly. They looked comfortable, familiar. I zoomed in until the image pixelated. His body angled toward her, her hand resting casually on the armrest between them. The ease of two people who knew each other well. The date stamp read November. 2 years ago. I leaned back slowly, the weight of it pressing down on my chest. Travis had met Emma 18 months ago, 6 months after that photo, which meant he hadn't stumbled into her life. He'd entered it, deliberately. The pieces slid together with sickening precision. The gym where they met, chosen, not random. Her injury history, her vulnerability, her family situation, a widowed father, a recently lost mother, a woman strong enough to work, but weakened enough to need help. 6 months of positioning, then marriage, then the accident, then care, then control. I whispered the word into the empty room. Targeted. Emma hadn't fallen in love by chance. She'd been selected. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. Every memory of Travis rewrote itself in my mind. His attentiveness, his patience, the way he'd insisted on handling her medications, her appointments, her phone calls so she could rest. It wasn't devotion. It was containment. By dawn, my decision was made. Friday morning, I parked across from Dr. Wright's office just before 9. I brought a thermos of coffee and a folded newspaper, props to make me look like any other retired man killing time. The drizzle returned, blurring the windshield and hiding my stare. Patients came and went. Not Emma. At 10 o'clock, the time Travis had told me was her Friday appointment. I called him. Hey, Philip, he answered easily. Everything okay? How's Emma today? I asked, keeping my voice light. She's great, he said without hesitation. We're actually at her therapy session right now. Dr. Wright's really helping her progress. I stared straight at the office door. No one had entered in 20 minutes. That's wonderful, I said. Tell her I called. Will do. Take care, Philip. When the call ended, the lie lingered in the air like smoke. At 11:30, I called Emma directly. She answered on the 4th ring. Hello. Her voice sounded thick, distant. Hey, honey. It's Dad. A pause. Too long. I just woke up, she said slowly. Travis said I had therapy, but I don't remember. I don't remember anything. My heart began to race. Emma, where are you right now? I'm home, I think. Everything's so foggy. The pills make me. Who are you talking to? Travis's voice cut in sharply. There was a rustle, then silence. When he came back on the line, his tone was smooth, controlled. Emma needs rest. The medications are making her confused. Please don't upset her. The line went dead. I sat there, gripping my phone, my reflection staring back at me from the rain-streaked glass. Across the street, the office door opened. Another patient stepped out. Not Emma. She wasn't healing. She was being erased. That night, when Emma called again, her voice was different. Clearer. Urgent. Dad, she whispered. Something's wrong. My chest tightened. I feel like I'm disappearing, she said. Days are just gone. Travis gives me pills, but I don't remember being prescribed anything new. And I don't think, her voice dropped lower. I don't think the accident was an accident. The line went dead. When Travis answered my call back, his voice was cold. Don't call again tonight, he said. She's not thinking clearly. I stood alone in my kitchen, the yellow light humming overhead, and understood the truth fully for the first time. This wasn't fraud. It wasn't control. It was preparation. And if I was right, then time wasn't just running out. It was already gone. When you realize the person who promised to protect your child has been planning her end from the beginning, do you still have time to stop it, or only time to survive it? Monday morning arrived without ceremony. No thunder. No dramatic shift in the sky. Just another gray Portland dawn slipping through the blinds like it always had. But nothing was the same anymore. The world had tilted, and I was walking through it with the uneasy awareness that everything solid could give way at any moment. I was standing at the kitchen counter, staring at the coffee maker without seeing it, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Mr. Carson, a woman's voice said when I answered. Calm, precise, used to being obeyed. This is Detective Lisa Reeves with the Portland Police Bureau, Financial Crimes Unit. I'd like to speak with you. The mug slipped from my hand and clattered harmlessly into the sink. She was investigating Dr. Vanessa Wright. My name had come up. Within 10 minutes I was in my car, the engine still cold, my heart pounding harder than it had the day Emma was born. I didn't know whether to feel relief or fear. Maybe both. If the police were already circling, then I wasn't imagining this. But if they were circling, it meant something big, something dangerous, was already in motion. The precinct smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Detective Reeves met me in a small conference room with fluorescent lights that flattened everything they touched. She was in her early 40s, hair pulled tight, eyes sharp and assessing even when her face was neutral. She didn't waste time. She asked about Emma, about the accident, about Travis, about Dr. Wright. I told her everything, every detail I could remember, every instinct I'd ignored until it was too loud to deny. She listened without interruption, pen moving steadily across her notepad. When I finished, she leaned back slightly. Medication can cause confusion, she said carefully, especially after trauma. Are you certain you're not misinterpreting what you're seeing? I didn't argue. I simply took out my phone and slid it across the table. The photo from the conference filled the screen. Travis. Vanessa Wright. 2 years ago. Detective Reeves stared at it longer than I expected. Something shifted in her expression. Not surprise, but confirmation. She stood, crossed the room, and returned with a thick folder. She slid a photograph toward me. Travis and Dr. Wright, sitting at a cafe, hands intertwined. The timestamp read January, 10 months before Emma's accident. They're not just associates, Reeves said quietly. They're partners, romantic and otherwise. The room felt suddenly too small. You're not the first father to walk in here worried about Dr. Wright, she continued. And your daughter isn't the first patient. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. There was another woman, Linda Dawson, 48 years old. Car accident. Settlement. 6 months later, she died from what was ruled an accidental overdose. Prescribed by Dr. Wright. The air left my lungs. She isn't the only one, Reeves added. But she's the one we're certain about. My hands curled into fists beneath the table. What about Emma? I asked. Reeves met my eyes. No softness. No comfort. Just truth. If your daughter is their current target, she's in serious danger. Time narrowed. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Detective Reeves needed evidence. Hard proof. Medications. Emails. Financial records. Anything. I knew Travis's routine. Tuesday afternoons. Errands. Therapy. Between 3 and 4:30. At exactly 3, I stood at Emma's front door with the spare key she'd given me years ago. The house was silent when I stepped inside, heavy with the kind of quiet that feels staged. I moved fast. The pill organizer was on the kitchen counter. 7 compartments, overflowing. Blue capsules. White tablets. Small yellow pills. No labels. No bottles. No instructions. I took photos. In the home office, Travis's laptop sat open. Logged in. I crossed a line I never thought I would. Emails filled the screen. One subject line stopped my breath. Timeline confirmation. Settlement clears in 14 days. Proceed as discussed. Keep her compliant. I photographed everything. Then I heard the car. Keys. Footsteps. I barely made it into the bathroom before Travis appeared in the hallway. He stood there smiling, blocking the exit, his eyes flat and cold. You've been stopping by a lot, he said pleasantly. I was just checking on Emma, I replied. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Next time, call first. It wasn't a suggestion. That night, I met Vincent Rogers at a cafe off Hawthorne. Retired detective. 20 years of experience etched into his face. I showed him the photos. He didn't hesitate. Benzodiazepines, he said. Opioids. Sedatives. Combined like this, she'd be foggy. Compliant. Dependent. This isn't treatment. It's control. Then he told me about another case. Another wife. Another overdose ruled accidental. These people don't stop, Vincent said. And if they know you're onto them, you're in danger too. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. Stop asking questions. Emma's health is fragile. Stress won't help her recovery. The message wasn't subtle. I forwarded it to Detective Reeves. He knows. Saturday morning, Reeve called again. She asked me to come in immediately. This time, I wasn't alone in the room. Michael Dawson sat hunched forward, grief carved into his face. Beside him was his daughter, Jessica, sharp-eyed and steady. Linda Dawson's family. Detective Reeves plugged a USB drive in her laptop and turned the screen toward us. A spreadsheet appeared. 14 rows. 14 names. Dates. Settlement amounts. Status. My eyes found it instantly. Emma Carson. Targeted 18 months ago. Settlement pending. Status. Active. Notes. Post-settlement plan. Facility placement. Gradual dosage increase. I couldn't breathe. They plan to overdose her, Reeves said quietly. Just like Linda. Make it look accidental. 14 names. 14 lives. This wasn't a scheme. It was a system. And Emma was next. When you discover your child's name listed among the dead and the nearly dead, do you collapse under the weight of it? Or do you become something you never expected to be? 9 days. That was all we had. 9 days before the settlement cleared. 9 days before Emma's name would move from active to something final, something irreversible. The spreadsheet lived behind my eyes now. 14 rows, 14 futures reduced to dates and dollar amounts. I saw Emma's name every time I closed my eyes, trapped between strangers who had never known her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she used to sing along to the radio off-key just to make her mother smile. Detective Reeves moved fast, faster than anyone I'd ever seen. Warrants were drafted. Accounts flagged. Paperwork flew through systems that usually crawled. But even with urgency, the law moved at the speed of caution, and caution was a luxury Emma didn't have. Saturday afternoon blurred into pacing and phone calls that led nowhere. Emma didn't answer when I called. Travis controlled her phone now, controlled her days, her pills, her reality. I tried to imagine what he was telling her, how he framed my concern as interference, my fear as instability. He was good at that. He knew how to sound reasonable while doing the unthinkable. That night, I barely slept. I sat in my chair, the same one Margaret used to tease me about for being too stiff, and stared at the darkened television screen. Every sound made me flinch. Every passing car felt like an ending arriving early. At 10:45 p.m., my phone rang. Emma. Her voice was low, shaky, but awake. "Dad," she whispered. "Something's happening." I sat up, so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "Travis is packing," she said. "He says it's a work trip, but he's taking his laptop, files. He told me to stay in the bedroom. He keeps checking his phone." Cold spread through my chest. "Emma," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Listen to me. Lock the bedroom door if you can. Stay on the phone with me." I called Detective Reeves with my other phone. She answered immediately. "He's running," I said. "He's at the house right now." There was no hesitation on her end. "We're moving." 15 minutes. I drove like I didn't care whether I lived to see the morning. When I reached Thurman Street, Travis's car was still there, trunk open, a suitcase half inside. Relief hit me so hard I almost cried. I parked across the street and waited, my hands clenched around the steering while so tightly my fingers went numb. Police cars arrived without sirens, shadows sliding into place around the house. Reeves stepped out, motioned for me to stay put. I nodded, though every instinct screamed to run inside and pull Emma into my arms. The knock was loud, authoritative. "Travis Brennan, Portland Police." Silence. Then movement. Fast. Panicked. A shout from the back of the house. I saw him, just for a second, bolting through the side gate, bag slung over his shoulder. Officers gave chase. 30 seconds felt like 30 years. "Suspect down," someone yelled. "We have him." My legs carried me before my mind caught up. Emma stood in the doorway wrapped in a blanket, her face pale, eyes wide. When she saw me, she broke. I held her like I hadn't since she was a child, feeling her shake, feeling her breathe. "It's over," I whispered. But it wasn't. Reeves's phone buzzed. Her expression darkened as she read the message. "Travis is in custody," she said quietly. "But Dr. Wright is gone. Office cleared out. Home too. She left earlier today." The victory collapsed in on itself. Sunday morning brought another blow. The settlement money transferred. Automated. Prearranged. Gone before anyone could freeze it. Cayman Islands. Then the Bahamas. Money moving faster than justice ever could. And then the restraining order. A lawyer named Danielle Warren arrived with a piece of paper claiming I was a danger to my own daughter. It looked official. It sounded official. It was designed to isolate Emma again, to finish what Travis couldn't. It unraveled just as fast. Reeves arrested Warren on the spot. Conspiracy. Obstruction. A paper trail led straight back to Travis. 2 hours later, the call came. They caught Dr. Vanessa Wright at Nassau Airport, boarding a private jet. The money was frozen. Extradition was underway. For the first time in days, I exhaled. But justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt like exhaustion, like standing at the edge of a cliff you almost fell from, staring down at what could have been. When I looked at Emma that afternoon, wrapped in a blanket, eyes clearer than they'd been in months, I understood something painful and true. They had thought they'd won. They had planned carefully, patiently, convinced they were untouchable. They hadn't counted on a father who refused to stop asking questions. And now, the reckoning was coming. When predators realized the trap they built has closed around them instead, do they feel fear or only rage at being exposed? The house felt different once Travis was gone. Not lighter, not peaceful, just exposed. As if the walls themselves had been holding their breath for months and were only now realizing they were allowed to breathe again. Emma slept most of that first night, real sleep for the first time in a long while, unbroken by alarms for pills or whispered instructions from someone who claimed to love her. I didn't sleep at all. I sat at the foot of the couch, watching her chest rise and fall, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. Every sound still felt like a threat. My body hadn't caught up to the idea that the immediate danger was over. By morning, the withdrawals began. The doctors of the hospital were careful, methodical, angry in the way professionals get when they realize medicine has been weaponized. They tapered the drugs slowly, explaining to Emma what each one had been doing to her body, to her mind. Some she barely remembered taking. Others she remembered too well. How they made the world feel padded, distant, like she was watching her own life through thick glass. I thought I was weak, she whispered to me from the hospital bed. I thought I just couldn't handle pain the way other people do. I took her hand, feeling how thin her fingers had become. You were drugged, I said. On purpose. That truth landed harder than any lie Travis had ever told her. Detective Reeves came by later that afternoon, a stack of files under her arm. She looked tired, but there was something steady in her eyes now, a sense of momentum. Travis is talking, she said, not because he feels guilty, because he feels cornered. Emma turned her head away at the sound of his name. He's blaming Vanessa, Reeves continued. Says she designed the protocol, the dosages, the timeline. Says he was just following medical advice. And her? I asked. She's blaming him, Reeves replied. Says he pressured her. Says she never intended for anyone to die. 14 names sat between those statements. None of them mattered to the people making excuses. Court dates followed quickly. Bail hearings. Motions. Delays that felt obscene given how close Emma had come to becoming another closed file. Reporters began calling. Some polite, some invasive, all hungry. We said nothing. Emma needed quiet more than justice speeches. Weeks passed. Color returned to her face. Her eyes sharpened. Memory crept back in pieces, small moments first, then longer stretches of time. Some memories made her laugh softly. Others made her go silent, staring at nothing while I waited beside her, saying nothing, letting her come back at her own pace. One evening, as the sun set orange and heavy through the living room window, she spoke without looking at me. He used to tell me you didn't trust me, she said, that you thought I was fragile, that you'd never see me as an adult. My chest tightened. I almost believed him, she continued, because it was easier than believing someone I loved would lie to me like that. I swallowed hard. I should have fought harder sooner. She finally looked at me then. Really looked. You did, she said. You just didn't know what you were fighting. The trials didn't have the drama people expect for movies. No shouting. No breakdowns in the courtroom. Just evidence laid out piece by piece, clinical and devastating. Financial trails. Medical records. Emails. The spreadsheet. 14 names projected onto a screen. Families filled the gallery. Some cried quietly. Some stared straight ahead, faces carved into something hard and unmovable. Michael Dawson sat 2 rows ahead of me, his daughter's hand clenched in his. When Emma's name appeared, I felt her grip tighten on my arm. But this time, it didn't end in silence. Travis was convicted on multiple counts: fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. Vanessa Wright followed soon after, her license revoked before the verdict even landed. The lawyer, the shell companies, the accomplices, the system collapsed inward, exposing itself completely. Sentences were read. Years. Decades. It didn't bring anyone back. It didn't erase what Emma had lost. But it stopped the machine. Months later, on a quiet morning, Emma stood in the kitchen making coffee. No pill organizer. No alarms. Just the simple, ordinary sound of a spoon stirring. She caught me watching her and smiled. A real one. "I'm thinking of going back to work part-time," she said casually. "Nothing big. Just something that's mine." I nodded, my throat tight. Outside, the rain started again. Soft, familiar, no longer ominous. The world hadn't become safe, but it had become honest. And sometimes, that's enough to survive. When the silence finally breaks and the truth is forced into the light, who do you become afterward? The person who was almost lost, or the one who refused to let go?